There it goes. Sometimes I click record and it just sits there. So, this is part 2. Don't worry. My friend Kate Batts is still here. Oh, those eyes. And they really do feel like they follow you. She's sitting down here for right now. She's standing. My apologies. These are historic Bell Witch Cave pictures. Now, by pictures, they're just postcards. But they are from 1909. This is the Bell Witch Well. I apologize for the blurry look. These are old pictures, so they have a blurriness to them. Now, this one's a little upsetting to me because this is the Bell Witch house. And the house that I went to looked nothing like that. So I gotta believe this is more accurate. So I don't know if they're gonna cover it in the story, but this is the tree the Bell Witch was riding when shot at with a silver bullet, and there's even a cross. It's right there that has been cut into the tree. A lot of these, you guys are like, we don't know much of the story because this is telling the story, but it's not telling the story. And I will get into another video that actually tells more of the story, lays it out, which is actually Mr. Ballin video, which will be out before, and then I will tell you that this video I show some things and we go from there. The Bell Witch Graveyard, the tomb of William Bell. I actually forgot who William Bell is in this. This is the entrance to the Bell Witch Cave. Again, these are all taken in 1909. Falls from the Bell Witch Cave. Now, I did not see a waterfall. And this is another one, falls from the Bell Witch Cave. Okay, so this is another one. Now, as you see, there's a gentleman right here, and he is pointing. And this guy right here, his head is tilted looking up. It's like they were walking, and the first guy goes, waterfall. And the second guy like looking down, like, where's the waterfall? I don't see anything. And the other guy's like, hey, stupid. It's right there. And the guy's like, huh. And then they took the picture. That's what it looks like. I was not making fun of anyone associated with the cave. Well, the people, yes. You know, my little demon. So, this is part 2. What did I step on? Dog food. Put that back there. Okay. Terrifying Truth of the Bell Witch, America's Ghost Legend, Boogeyman, from channel Shiver. We'll do another 15-ish minutes. You want up here? Okay.
Anybody who goes up there looking for the Bell Witch will find the Bell Witch.
I did not want to find her.
In the final chapters of Pat Fitzhugh's book, he talks about his visit out to the graveyard where some of the family had been buried, and he talks about having this feeling of a presence out there, out at the graveyard. He's not the only one. There is also some kids that had gone out there and had found the gravestone of John Bell, and they were bringing the daggone thing back in their car, and they had an accident out on the main road, and they died in that accident. Again, the story is it was the witch that was that went after them.
The legend of the Bell Witch has been detailed in some 20 books. It's the most extensively studied case of a haunted house in American history. One of the better-known works was written in 1894 by Martin Ingram, a Tennessee journalist.
And about 3 years before he wrote the book, in the Nashville Banner, he did write a letter that anybody that knew anything on the subject of the Bell family or the Bell Witch to write him letters and testimonies. And he went around the entire countryside in Montgomery, Robertson, and Adams, all through that area, and got a lot of information and testimonies on people that had heard about the...
Yeah. They say if you enter the cave and you are basically talking shit, you will be smacked, slapped, have rocks thrown at you. They just encourage you to be respectful. You don't have to go in there and be like, oh, the great master Kate Batts, please be nice to me. Like, I didn't grovel. I just walked in and treated it like I was just looking at a cave. The cave is in two sections. So you walk in, there's this long corridor. You got to duck. You know, it's a cave. You get hit in the head with rocks. Not comfortable. Then there's this big opening, and then there's you can go further, and you have to go through another thing. And that one gets a little more claustrophobic because you really have to duck, and I had to turn my shoulders sideways because I really couldn't fit through it. And as I was walking through, all I thought of was Nutty Putty Cave, and I was like, yeah, me and that guy, and that was his name, John Brown. I don't even remember his name now. Me and that guy, yeah, we're going through the same thing. Of course, he got stuck in the cave and died, and I'm just walking. So, completely different approaches to it. But, yeah, it was... It's my dog. Kelby, what are you doing? Don't ever do that again. Back to the video.
Had heard about the legend or actually even knew the Bells.
The story that Ingram tells is he got a copy of the diary that was written by Richard Bell, who is Elizabeth Bell's younger brother. At the time that this event had occurred in Adams, Tennessee, Richard was about 6 to 7 years old. Richard then, 20 years later, sits down and decides he wants to write a diary. So he writes a diary, and he titled it My Family's Troubles. He gives his diary to his son. His son then, about 20 years later, brings this diary to Marvin Ingram with the stipulation that they could do nothing with the diary until all the family had died off. All the first generation family had died off.
The closest to the legend is in Ingram's book because he interviewed people within the same era who were related to people who used to live in the time when the actual legend took place.
Supposedly, the current owners of the property where the home itself sat on, I don't believe is the Bell family. But the Bell family still owns the cave and all that stuff, I believe. But anyways, there is a thing where the owners of this house, the owners of the house keep diaries. And the new owners found this diary and were flipping through. So what happened was, I guess they bought the home and they had knocking. I'm sorry. That's incorrect. They had glass break. And so they were like, oh well. And they found this book and they opened up this book and they opened it up to a chapter called Breaking Glass. And it was one of the signs of, like, the haunting. Now, they didn't believe in it. They apparently have had scratching glass breaking, all kinds of things which have made them become believers. But anyways, this has been handed down from the Bell family all the way down, and everyone adds to it with their experiences. That has to be a tremendous book to read. That has to be tremendous.
A lot of folks really kind of consider the first book by Ingram kind of the Bell Witch Bible, if you will, and I don't know why. I know the Ingram book is older. Perhaps that's why. Ingram was a very good writer. He was a newspaper publisher, and he wrote in the style of his day, which was the 1890s. Sometimes a little bit prejudiced, but in general, he's a very good writer.
Okay, and the book is basically filled on stories that happened to the Bell family, that they started hearing strange noises, and they started seeing strange animals, and John Bell would shoot at them, and nothing would happen, or they would run off. And it talks about John Bell later on being killed by the witch.
Several other books follow and help feed the growing legend. Newer reports of alleged witch sightings and other eyewitness accounts win over more believers. Then, a few members of the Bell family come up with a new theory about the hauntings. In a book published in 1934, Dr. Charles Bailey Bell, John's grandson, says that his grandfather came to Tennessee from North Carolina under a cloud of suspicion.
People like the Bell family who were farmers, they began to move into this area because of the land and the fertilization of the land. We're almost certain that they did raise tobacco. There was a church that was established in North Carolina, and it moved here, and primarily all the people that was in that church came here with the church.
And John Bell was a member of Red River Baptist Church, and he was excommunicated, which I didn't know the Baptists did, but he was, and he was kicked out of the church for a term called usury.
John Bell is a wealthy man, but how he comes by his fortune and conducts his business affairs raises a lot of eyebrows in Robertson County.
They were a prominent family in North Carolina when they moved in here. I've often wondered why did John Bell, I think at the age of 56, if you were successful back there and had a going farm or plantation, why would you leave and move in here and start fresh again?
And there's several stories on basically what he did or what he was accused of. Is that some say it was for sale of a horse, sale of land, sale of a slave, or something like this.
He bought it from the Batts family, and Kate felt she was cheated in the purchase.
Kate felt cheated by the Bells, and that she played a role in the actual experience of the Bell Witch. The Bell Witch actually uses a voice, which not all ghosts do, and she refers to herself as Kate. And so that takes you back to Kate Batts.
And we're not really for certain if Kate Batts was the witch or not. The witch says that she was. And basically, this book right here was written by Ingram. And but we don't know if he ever got to interview any of the Batts family or any of that.
The ghost could be Kate. It could be Kate because this is the person that had an antagonistic relationship with John Bell. A lot of people think that it is Kate because the ghost would use the voice, and whenever she would speak, she would refer to herself as Kate.
Another thing behind all of this is that, and there's no easy way to say it. John Bell, clearly slave owner and all that stuff. But John Bell was 32 when he married his wife, and I forgot her name. And she was 12. He was 32, she was 12. Now, she didn't have her first child. That's when he married her. You heard me right. I'll say it a third time. He was 3'2" 32. She was 12 years old, not even a teenager, when he married her. Now, she didn't have her first child until she was like 25, but still. There's also the witch used to really go after the daughter. And there is thought that the daughter took a lot of this because potentially he was molesting the daughter. Now, supposedly the witch used to tell them why she was doing all this, but the family never talked about it. That could be why. Now, I wanted to also talk about the Kate Batts thing. Kate Batts went after the daughter. She went after... Your hair is making me want to sneeze. Sorry. It's coming on. Okay. So, the... where was I? Kate Batts. Used to go after the daughter. There was potential that he was molesting the daughter. Don't know if that's true or not. But everyone had problems. Now, when the wife, at one time she came down really sick, and I guess walnuts and grapes started just falling from the ceiling, and the witch said, "Eat these." And she did. She got better. So they think that maybe that's why it's a jinn, because it was good and bad. But the wife, the reason why I bring this long-winded story together, the wife was a niece of Kate Batts. So if the witch was Kate Batts, now there was a real person named Kate Batts that he had problems with. That Kate Batts swore she's not the witch. How could she be? But people think that she might have summoned this thing. But this thing claims it's been there for millions of years. And it had been disturbed. So whatever. But that's just a quick little aside.
Although there is nothing to indicate that that happened. In fact, oftentimes they say that Kate Batts was...
Oh, more ads. You liking the story? Right in my nose again. It's raining again. Really bad out there.
That Kate Batts was the witch. The only trouble is Kate Batts was alive at the time. So it's not likely that she had anything to do with it. And the other thing I found in research is she didn't really hold a grudge anyway.
It's a good question. How Kate fit into it all, since, as you pointed out, she wasn't dead when these manifestations started happening. There's no evidence that she cursed him, that she felt cheated by him. That was, at best, a distant relative of hers. So I think this is just probably pretty typical for the way legends develop.
Back then, I think superstition probably played a very important role. Is that in the early escorts of man or escapades of man, is that if you can't explain it, it must be something we've done to upset God. So therefore, we won't do that anymore if we can find out what it was we didn't do to begin with. So therefore, this is how they explain many of the actions was through superstition.
Maybe. Seems valid.
The dramatic story of the Bell Witch is made to order for actors. Every year in the fall, some of Tennessee's best performers come together to recount the horrific legend of the most famous haunted house in America. Thrills and chills guaranteed.
And for the play, it's wonderful. We have local artists there. We have a lot of talent is in this neighborhood, a lot of talent.
I hear in 2006, there was about 1,000 in attendance to that play, which runs 2 or 3 weekends in a row. And this past year, in 2012, there was 1,600 who visited, so it's really increased. They changed the story up from year to year. They have different characters in it, different cast members, and they'll try to focus on different aspects of the legend.
And usually involves at least some of the Bell family, and occasionally they'll have a Bats family related to the Bats in the play.
But it's so good. They're so professional. We've had people come there from, like, maybe New York. They say, you know, the plays there are not any better than our plays here.
Well, curiosity seekers will come, and they will experience the Bell Witch by going to the play's spirit. And whenever they go out there to Adams and watch the play, sometimes they'll have things happen to them that they will attribute to the Bell Witch. And that's why they come here in the first place a lot of times, because people are fascinated with this story. And the fact that it has gone through the years and lasted as long as it has is just fascinating to people. And when they do come and they do experience the play and then maybe visit some of the sites, they might have some things happen to them that they might think is from the paranormal. And whether it's the paranormal, who's to say?
The Bell Witch legend keeps the town of Adams on the map. Recent phenomena still have people believing, and so the legend lives on.
When I came, being an outsider, I was a non-believer.
They're little vaporous orbs that can be seen.
They couldn't see he was a person. They just could see some movement and a little light.
But I've only been in the cave one time, that night that the lights went out.
And there's this lady that came, and she was going to do a seance.
I have no desire to go back in it. And yes, true, I am a believer.
We have not seen them, but we have been told by 2 different people. One who was up here, who had never been here before, and said, well, I saw this little cloud going from the cemetery to the 2nd floor of your house. And we also ran into another man who grew up on this road as a child and said he was never so scared in his life and saw the same thing.
What should one make of those wispy clouds often spotted in this part of Tennessee? Fog is relatively common in the region. Great Smoky Mountains National Park is just a 5-hour drive from Adams. The park gets its name from the fog that often drifts down from the high mountains. It's home to bears and deer, but no recorded sightings of a ghost or even the Bell Witch. So why do people claim strange things are still happening in Tennessee?
Like many legends and ghost stories, they tend to morph over time, especially if people have an incentive.
People have an incentive, what, to lie? It's a movie. Well, we got the Bell Witch to worry about.
Have an incentive, and I'm not going to talk about I'm not going to make any allegations, but there's money to be made here.
Marvin Ingram started a newspaper in Springfield, Tennessee, and then moved his newspaper up to Clarksville. And the 2 of them ran the paper. Thomas was the reporter, and Ingram was the promoter. They had gotten into, at that time, a kind of the liars group. And the whole thing was who could tell the most fantastic story.
Well, you can never discount lying. People lie.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons, and some people like attention, some people want to believe. So there's always that.
I have the fastest karate chop in the history of the world.
Marvin Ingram wrote his book. On the back part of his book, he's got a list of all the people he talked to and interviewed for this book.
You have to go back to where do we even know about the story? We know about the story from Ingram.
He talked to nobody who had ever been involved directly with the Bell Witch. He talked only to people who knew people who were involved.
In my opinion, it could have been nothing. In my opinion, that story could have totally been made up.
He never talked with Elizabeth. He never talked with any of the family, and never even talked with the boy, Richard Bell, who wrote the diary.
They refused to part with the diary until Betsy was dead. And I thought to myself, that's really slick, because now with Betsy out of the picture and they give the diary, she's not there to interview, to verify.
I was going to say she's not there to counter. No, that didn't happen. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I get that.
Not verify. So, but again, we go back to this assumes the diary even existed.
Nobody has even seen the diaries.
There's no reason to believe Ingram couldn't have made everything up other than the fact that these people did exist. The Bell family did exist.
It is reported by Marvin Ingram that Andrew Jackson visited the site. Now, Andrew Jackson visited after he had just done the New Orleans, conquest down there, where he defeated the British in New Orleans.
Well, the story about him coming into town and his wagon not moving and on, whenever that was reported to have happened, I mean, he was president. People knew where he was, and he wasn't there.
Anything that man would have done would have been written down in great detail. Okay, I have searched his journals.
He was not president when that happened. It started in 1817 and it ran through 1824. He didn't become president until 1829. And he served 1829 to 1837. So he was not president. So she is incorrect. Or she's lying.
Others have searched his journals. There's absolutely no mention whatsoever in his journals of ever having been to Adams, Tennessee, not without alone having confronted the witch.
I mean, the way this legend has developed, it's got a little bit of everything. They've thrown in poltergeist stuff, they've thrown in witch stuff, ghost stuff, bad witch, good witch. There's religion thrown in, so that's a good way to get people to believe. Put something in there that they can relate to, and they might ignore the rest, but they'll believe the legend if it has something that speaks to them.
So one of the pictures you saw was that painting was like the dog thing with two heads, and the guy was standing there with an axe. Hold on. Let me let this play for a second. I think it was after this.
There's religion thrown in, so that's a good...
Dean and the Witch. Okay, so there's a story about this guy. Dean was dating the daughter. I think Dean was the one that was originally with her, and then the witch told him not to marry him and really came after him. But anyways, Dean was walking and this dog came at him, and he hit the dog with the axe, and it split its head in half. And the next time he saw it, its split head was now two heads. Instead of cracking the skull open, it had pretty much morphed into being two heads now. So it was a stronger animal, he said. After Betsy broke up with Dean did not leave town. He stayed there. He ended up getting married years later. I think it was had 8 kids or whatever. But Dean stayed in the area and told everyone about his experience. So that to me kind of counters what they're saying, in that this thing was put out after. Maybe it was, but Dean was talking about it before this book had come out. So I think there's some... Please don't lose power again. Not her, outside. So I think there is some credibility to that aspect of it.
Good way to get people to believe. put something in there that they can relate to, and they might ignore the rest, but they'll believe the legend if it has something that speaks to them.
Kids all around Robertson County and Middle Tennessee hear about the Bell Witch as they grow up. And not only do they hear it from family and friends when they're younger, but when they do enter the school system, sometimes it will be interjected into their curriculum.
What I would do is I would write something on a piece of paper, as inane as it is or something like this, and the rule of the game is that the first person in this class row read it and tried to memorize it. And then I took the piece of paper, and then the rules of the game is you turn around and you tell the person behind you exactly what you read. And that went all the way around the room until the last person. Now that last person's job was to come up and write on the board exactly what they heard. It never, ever started out or ended up the same. So therefore, I said, okay, now we have established the rules for telling the Bell Witch stories.
Well, found footage.
Yeah, we used to do that in school. I think was it called telephone? Teacher would tell somebody at the start and just how it goes along. So yeah, I get that. That's a great excuse to make it fake. I'm gonna take it back. I don't want to. I was gonna go until the next boogeyman thing, but I don't know when that is. And I don't want the last part to be like 5 minutes. So I'm going to take it back to that last guy right there. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put her down. Oh, you're good right there. I just got to say goodbye. So I'm going to end this video. And like and subscribe. I'm forgetting. Like and subscribe. And until next time, till part 3, have a good day, have a good night.